Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast. Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Maki Moussavi. Maki Moussavi is an executive coach, speaker, and author who helps executives and organizations who seek to empower, strengthen, and transform their leadership and teams. Maki provides the mental tools and accountability to enable highly transformative professional and personal development that focuses on reprogramming to a new mindset that is authentic and aligns personal, career, and organizational aspirations while gaining clarity on direction and vision. Maki also supports executive teams and organizations to empower meaningful change during times of transition or cultural challenges. Maki is a corporate career veteran and master's trained genetic counselor. Good afternoon, Maki. Glad to have you on the show.
Hey, Brian, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, Maki, you started out in healthcare. I've been in healthcare many years on the technology side, but you decided to jump into entrepreneurship as an executive coach. Can you explain that?
Sure. Yeah. So my healthcare journey started with really what I studied. So I went to school and got a degree in genetic counseling, which I know is very obscure. And even today, a lot of people still don't know what it is. But I just had a love for genetics and really wanted to do something with it, even though I wasn't excited about being stuck in a lab doing research. So that was kind of a nice compromise between having the scientific knowledge and actually interacting with patients. And at some point I decided, this is great, but I really want to take that information and that knowledge and kind of apply it more broadly. So when I had an opportunity to join a company that was supporting genetic testing with technology, actually with a software, it was the perfect opportunity to do so. And I was a subject matter expert for many years there, and then was encouraged by a mentor of mine who I respect a lot to make a decision about whether I wanted to stay on the path of being a subject matter expert or actually go more on a career path and learn the business, management, etc. And I decided to do that. After I would say it was about 10 years into my career, I started to understand that I really wasn't in the right place. I had all the success I could have hoped for. I was making great money. My life looked really good on paper, but I just wasn't happy. And I was surrounded by people who were very similar to me. They were the same. People had just kind of bought into this idea that this is what success looks like. And even though we don't love it, this is how it is. And so there was a lot of compromise around what do I really want? And there's really nothing else out there for me. And when I started to think I needed to do something different, I really tuned into what I was doing in my day-to-day work, really enjoyed. And it turns out that what I enjoyed the most was working with my team and getting them to where they wanted to be or helping them solve the problems and the issues that were popping up for them. So much so that I developed a reputation for being quote unquote good to talk to and had people who weren't even in my organization setting up time to speak with me. And it was at that point I thought, it's really this connection with people at this level that I truly enjoy. So I decided to go ahead and take the leap and leave to start that journey.
That is amazing. I love that story. And like you said, I think we all have this, idea that this is what success looks like because I went to college, I'm in my lane, I'm staying in my lane. And yeah, this is exactly right. And I think more people would flush the fear, like your latest article, thanks for sharing that, and jump into something that they're passionate about. I think the world will be a better place. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
So, Maki, this month we celebrate International Women's Day. In fact, we just celebrated it the other day. Could you tell us what that means to you?
Yes, for me, it really means, women, because of the way that we're socialized, there's so much talent inside of the women that we have in our workplaces and just in general. But there's still these socialization issues that we deal with around, if you are very successful and you are very dedicated to your work, to some people that seems like you're neglecting your family. If you decide to stay with your family and deny yourself, in some cases, these are women who are making a conscious decision to do an either or. Like if I decide to spend time with my family, that means I can't do what I want to do professionally. And there's just always this compromise feeling around what you get to do and what you get to people think about what you're doing and what you've chosen. And what I really hope, for women, I work with men and women, but one of the things that I really hope for women is that they can really step into who they truly are and stop apologizing and being apologetic for the decisions they're making and truly get to the point where other perspectives of what they have chosen to do are irrelevant to them. And that is a difficult place to get to, but there is so much freedom in simply doing what you know is right for you without worrying about what anyone else thinks about that choice. And that was something I personally had to wrestle with when I was deciding to leave, because the overwhelming feedback was, you're crazy. How can you walk away from this? How are you ever going to recreate this kind of success? And I just knew that I wasn't willing to compromise in that way to have a version of success that didn't belong to me, that wasn't mine, and was never going to fulfill me. And I hope for women that they can really get on that path where they don't have to wonder what anyone else is thinking, that they can really get solid in their own ideas and beliefs and core around what they want, and to walk in that direction feeling personally empowered to make that happen without worrying about any kind of repercussions, and especially ones that are usually not important at all, because at the end of the day, what other people think of us is really not an impact on our lives unless we allow it to be. And I hope for women that there will be more and more of that as we go forward.
Thank you. That's an interesting perspective, and I appreciate you sharing that. That's really important. Maki, can you briefly tell us about your book? You've written a book called The High Achiever's Guide. What inspired you to write that?
My personal journey was really an inspiration because, as I shared, I saw so many people around me all the time who were just so unhappy despite, degrees, success, money, all the things. I didn't see people who are lit up to be at work. Let's just be honest. It just wasn't happening. And I know that that's not true across all industries, but I think it's true in general in our business, in the way we do business, especially in the United States. So one of the things as I was going through this very deep personal development process around changing the way that I think about what success is, and changing the way I put my behavior and my thought processes, and all of the work that it took to get to that point where I felt like I could make a big change, I really believed that even though the details are different, many of us who are type A success-driven people are ultimately built the same way. And I felt if I could share something from what I did and my journey and what I use with my clients that would be helpful to other people, it was really important to do so. And that's what the book is about. It's about how do you change the way that you think? How do you change that programming? I actually lay out the parts of the book with a computer analogy, because in a lot of ways we are like computers. And we're programmed to think and behave in certain ways. And we've got to do our own bug fixes, our own system updates, our own cleanup. It's not going to happen miraculously. And it is very possible to change a lifetime of programming in a relatively short period of time with the right focus and the right consistency. I really felt it was important to share that. And one of the things that's been really gratifying for me since the book came out is that the most common feedback I get from people when they read the book is, I feel like you're inside my head. And that's great, because for me, that reinforces that even though the details are different, ultimately a lot of us are very similar, and it's similar actions that will get us from where we don't want to be to where we do want.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I'll definitely have to read that book, especially if it, as you said, humans relate to computers. That's my bailiwick. That's where I live, right? So
exactly.
That's awesome. So just for our audience, The High Achiever's Guide by Maki Moussavi. So Maki, what drives you to do what you do and be successful in your space then? I know you shared a little bit about why you jumped into being an executive coach, but what makes you successful?
Coaching is a tria because there's so many different kinds of coaches, right? And even if they're similarly labeled, they're not necessarily the same. So even though I'm an executive coach is out there, we don't necessarily do the same things. And there's space for everyone. Everyone who's out there is performing vital functions. I think that for me personally, because my background is in genetic counseling, for people who don't understand that, what that is, it is a very crisis-oriented kind of counseling. Typically, when people are referred to genetic counselor, it's because something is wrong. There's a lot of fear, and it's a very complex area to try to explain to someone, especially when they're already scared in terms of what the impact is, and working with people through this kind of a crisis scenario in many cases. And often when people come to me, even though their life looks really great, spiritually and mentally, they do feel like they're in a crisis. And because I have that background, and because I'm also was basically trained to take complex information and break it down for people, one of the things I love the most about this is just how naturally it comes to help people who feel very confused and at a loss and unsure of how to proceed, to quickly help them see, like, this is what I see. Let's break it down like this. Here's some very simple things that you can start to do to move you forward. And the relief that they feel usually within the first 6 weeks or so is amazing. So even though nothing has changed necessarily in their reality in terms of the outside, the way that they think and the way that they feel has changed dramatically. That is the piece that's really gratifying for me, is to see these people who are saying, look, this is not where I want to be. I'm feeling kind of panicked about this because I don't know how to change it. And then through their own actions, with just some guidance and accountability, they can make really transformational changes in their lives. And seeing people get to where they want to be drives what I do all the time. It's why this message is important to me. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's a core piece of how I'm built to operate. And I think there's such power in humans when those pieces of themselves and use it to provide value to others. It's very satisfying. It's energizing and inspiring. And I have to say that I think a lot of high achievers struggle with, that I did, is typically the things that you're criticized for repeatedly are your superpowers. And for me, I was constantly criticized in the corporate environment around my direct communication, needing to soften my edges, needing to basically dim myself down because I was too much for people. And thankfully, I never really let any of that land. It didn't feel like the right thing to stop being who I was. And that what I'm doing now, those are the things that make me good at what I do. And I wish for everyone that the things that make you good, that are natural, the things that come easily, are the things that we should be focusing on. We spend way too much time thinking about our weaknesses and not enough time embracing our strengths.
I like that perspective for sure. So, Maki, just to wrap up real quick, what advice would you give other women leaders in your field?
I think for any women who are leaders, whatever your field is, if you struggle with fear and leading with or appreciating your strengths or your value, please understand that this is a common thing that many of us struggle with, and that they can show up differently, embracing those elements of yourself, feeling empowered. You do have programming to overcome. So don't give up. Find, my book is a great place to start if that's something that you feel like you need help and support with, to read something, homework that's there. If you need to hire a coach, find a coach. Find somebody who resonates with you, who you feel like can really help you on this journey. And I'll just say that's another element of this that's difficult, especially for women often, is to make that kind of investment in yourself from a money and time perspective, because we can spend all kinds of money on things like our homes, our cars, and our clothes that are very external. But when it comes to pouring that money into ourselves, it can feel like a stretch because often we don't feel worthy of it. So I would say be willing to make the time and money investment in yourself and to find someone to help you if that's what you need.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's been really great, an interesting perspective on how to look at life, how to look at yourself internally. So, Maki, I appreciate you being on the show today. It was certainly a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Brian.
Bye for now.
Bye.